How much DACA is too much DACA? Here we are with Mork Perry. Whoa! And Mike gets brought all the DACA, and of course, we got all the tips, the tricks, the questions, the answers, and really just some random explanations and combinations that we're going to get into today. So, of course, welcome my favorite get, Mork Perry. Mark Perry, you want to say hello to the gets?
What's up, boys? How you doing?
So before we get fully into it, let's get a shout out to our sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So thank you to the Baron of Dice for providing us with our dice for our paint competition and allowing us to do that and supporting the community. So check that out. And of course, check out Forge Fire Gaming if you like to use GW layout terrain or you need some of your own. Check them out. We use them around here in the Midwest. They have the little templates and they're good, sturdy. The terrain actually sits in the actual slits, so it doesn't slide around. So with that being said, Mork, what's good? We're here. Shout out from Germany, all the gets. What were you saying about that jersey, by the way? Yeah,
dude, it's like one of the only European ones that can fit me.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. So we are live, guys. Of course, say what you got to say at the end. We can go through chats and everything like that. But we have some topics here, some banners, and everything we're going to discuss. If you want, I can pull up army rules to validate anything. Don't worry about it. But we're going to keep it simple with the presentation, so you guys can just sit back and listen and enjoy. So let's talk about the DACA WAAAGH. Mork Perry, how you feeling about it? Do you think the army's too strong? Everybody knows the dam's been broken. Everybody's freaking out. The main question is, are we too strong? How do you feel?
I think our potential is like crazy high. Like I like the detachment rule to me did not immediately say to me that hey, look, this detachment's broken. I look at it, I'm like, this is really strong. Well, a lot of potential here. A lot of just like could be a very ignorant and style way for shooting, right? But then we get to the strats.
Oh.
And the strats unlock a whole other thing for the detachment. Like I'm like, okay, I really like assault on my guns. I've been wanting to be able to advance with orcs and shoot them for the longest time with WAAAGH. Sustain 2, crazy amount potential. I've been rolling out a bunch of stuff on the side, like trying to figure out what type of units actually now can function with Sustain 2. And what type of targets are effective into. But then the strats just like they are. I don't know. Like, how did you just make orc? The best way to put it down is orc is still an orc. That's the best flipping name ever because I'm gonna go punch you with the butt of my gun at the end of the day still.
Reroll,
and that's like one of my philosophies. Yeah, like knobs. Tank busters are still knobs in melee with no choppas, just fist. They're still strength 5. Strength 6 on the wall. I'll put you down. I have a chop on the unit too, so that's the important part.
Speaking of the enhancements, I mean the stratagems, we're jumping a little ahead here. The WAAAGH being a stratagem is the #1 thing I wanted since I started playing orcs in 40k. That's it. That's all I wanted. Yeah. I just wanted to be able to advance and charge outside of the wand, still be able to crump at the same potential. So really I'm just in love with it. Is for GW is the flavor, what they were trying to pull off here without doing the math clearly. They did an excellent job because something like a Mega Knob with DACA just feels great, right? And it feels really good. Just you're like, hey, my big mech and mega armor and stuff. But then you look at the things that people are perceiving as too strong. So we get back to now that you're considering the army rule and the stratagems and the orc data sheets and the cost of the orcs and the saturation of units. Is it to the point that, for example, does GW need to immediately come and emergency nerf this? If you would ask some people on the internet, they'd be like, you got to set this fire out right now. I can't have this. I can't have orcs out shooting Tau. Tau's, in peril. So do you think it's to that degree, or can we play it out? Let's say, see if people can find solutions to this, or, this army of people, what right now is being written as a bunch of t-shirt saves. Of course, we're going to talk about the walkers and the other units and that we want to bring here. But for the most part, a lot of the lists you're seeing are like just a lot of dudes, right? And so can people figure that out, or are we just too strong with just straight DACA, dudes on foot, boom, you can't figure it out. Sorry, rest of the community.
I think a lot of people are going to figure it out. I think this detachment, the easiest things that could counter it right off the bat is finding the right build that doesn't just get ran over by aggressive over melees. Like Creations of Bile. I think that has a legit matchup against us right off the bat because good high toughness, fast, melee, a little bit of shooting. You can kind of out pressure them. So it's a matter of are we broken as if we find that right build where it can handle the shooting, it can just dominate people in shooting, while also playing the screen game. Like you talk, when one of our last interviews, the strongest thing about gun line lists, when gun line lists become broken, or when they can screen successfully, when they can trade and keep the melee armies off of them, at a level where they don't get put behind. Do we have room for that? I think so. I think it's going to be a lot of delving to figure out, though. It's going to be like Tactical Grade, where we're going to have some low lows on some weeks and some high highs on some weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they need to get hit emergency. In this case, we've seen a lot of other strong armies. At the end of the day, like you said, if people mistime it, if you're just trying to pick up orcs and you think you could just put them on the table, you forget that outside of the wall, you just fall over. You're just, soft as bolters, essentially. And that's what some people are building their lists out now. We'll talk about diversity. Don't worry about you gits that are bringing up the walkers, and for you gits that are bringing up the revolution. Whoa, yeah. But so let's go with tell me enhancements. What are your favorite enhancements? And thank you, of course, to the Fighting Fedora being my git like always. What do you think about the enhancements? Do any even appeal to you? I mean, of course, targeting squig, of course. I mean,
yeah.
Make the tank busters actually kill any 3-wound infantry in a very effective manner, and they're just well versed into the rest of armies data sheets other than vehicles and monsters when you have targeting squig. But other than that, any of those stand out to you?
Not too much. I think that's the thing is this detachment is so well rounded everywhere where the enhancements are good, but they don't jump at you. Like I remember targeting swift for +1 to hit. It's a big deal. It's just tactics for orders for that one key unit, right? Tank busters hit on 4s already, but with that, if you add, you can have practically a shotgun attack gun with that relic, and jump it between different units based on matchup. Right, if you're playing against a bunch of vehicles that have plus -1 to hit, you join with a tank buster so you can get around the -1. You find into a layout and a matchup where you can put that guy 48 inches away from your opponent because there's a line down there. You can put up with some looters and just lay down some suppressing fire at a spot where opponents can't deal with it. I think that enhancement sticks out immediately. The hazardous one, I really got to roll to see how it is. As soon as you have devastating wounds on any of the characters' guns, like a shotgun attack gun is obvious, that adds a lot of different math. I don't know if it's auto include, it's really good. It's something that I want in the army. And then the rapid fire one, if it wasn't 35 points and the fact that most of the units already have rapid fire, boys, looters, tank busters then got to get within 12 inches, which I do actually kind of a lot, but I don't think it's worth it for 35 points.
You're almost overkilling. What are you already not killing once you're in 12-inch range? Because if you are in 12-inch range, you now have the knob getting off his pistol shots, and you have the bomb squig, for example, possibly getting off as well. You are pretty close. And then also now you have the strats at your disposal as well because you're close enough. Additional AP if you even need to do that. So like you said, it's almost overkill at that point on that one specific unit. The one fun thing I'll say that, of course, my gets bring up is big mech with mech guns, right? Bring a rapid fire. You use some kind of tractor cannon to come and smash a gun. People enjoy that. Yes, that's a thing. I don't think it's going to be, competitively often a thing, but it is something that you can bring if you really just are trying to fill up more points and more DAKA, because not everybody has, what we're going to be going and talking about. And we'll speak more about the enhancements, but something that I think what the first strat that jumped off the bat to me, of course, was the WAAAGH for 1 CP, but it's because our git Ghazghkull is finally at his full potential. Right, the fact that he now has access to his army, his data sheet ability at his own will, instead of just everybody else on the wall. Dude, you were one of the first people that made other people notice Zod, even though we've all loved Zod around here in this community. Now the whole 40K universe is about to know Ghazghkull's name and what Super Grots can do, super runs, because they're going to be at a world of her, because very few people actually brought them and use them competitively. Now we're at the point that everyone's plugging and playing on them on their DAKA list. So how do you feel about Zod's at his full potential?
So that's obvious. Everyone's on that level. The thing that I think people aren't understanding is the assault. Gaining assault in the wall is massive. Like, how many times I advance that unit and I want to like shoot it and I can't shoot it, right? Also, like, now you just got all these drop pistols that are hitting on threes, winning everything at least on fives, and a lot, and infantry stuff on fours. Like, you can gain a lot of advantage off of that for picking away screens, chipping wounds off of free up armor save vehicles. Like, gaining assaults on the guns is crazy. And then the next thing is the reroll wounds. Like, dude, like, if you have reroll wounds, like, I can't tell you how many times I've ran into spots where Zogrod fails the wound, wounding on twos. A couple ones here, a couple ones there. If that man has reroll wounds, he hits harder targets now and can probably just kill them, right? Because all the hard targets, he'll at least wound on fours with full rerolls. That's a 75%, wound rate. And those are big numbers when you start ganging up on it.
It's amazing how much fear you put into people for flipping their objectives with your tiny little grot bases to get up there, and you shooting stuff away. You can fit more stuff that maybe shoot that's behind your actual charging target, swinging it, make gaps in people's lines. That also applies though, and I wanted to mention this for the shiny shooter. Let's say for those gits that are just like Dakka, the shiny shooter with a war boss maybe on some boys. Kind of like the same concept of they don't obviously aren't as good as Zod because Zod gives his unit +1 to hit. They're grot pistols, but some people would still find some pleasure in that. It performs the same role of I can actually kill a couple Sky Marines, I can kill a couple T3 bodies, and that really does make a difference when you're playing that nuanced melee army for some matchups more than others. But the assault on Zod is amazing. And what's the tempo you really use Zod at here?
So, like, this one adds, something I've always preached was, like, I've never found where I felt like I had 100% mastery over Zod. This only makes it worse, right? Like, I see all the different lines for Zod, and now there's only more. Because he's, like, you just have a wall at command. Like, now, it used to be in the past when you pop the wall, like, Zod would go from here to over there, deal with the skirmish, and kind of live there, right?
For sure.
But now you can go over there, beat up these scouts, give them some self to wall with the strat, beat them up. Next turn, you could save the wall or call it, and then they could just torpedo out again. They can keep torpedoing at that point. Now you can just go clear out whole table quarters of skirmish units with Zod's unit, and then transfer him to the front lines for free almost. Like, it's a game changer for his unit. Like, the thing is, like, I promise you, like, when every game I have, win or loss, I'm going to be like, I could have used them better in this way. Like, I could have. There's something I did not see a line of attack from, and this also makes his rapid ingress more playable. Like, when you run these matchups where, like, maybe, like, I want to be a little more late game heavy, or like I really need like a rapid ingress threat. Like, that guy could just get rapid ingress in, give him the wall, and go. He's not dependent on the rest of the army
anymore. Don't even need a scout anymore.
Yeah, don't even need a scout. Just get out of here.
That's wild. So you're saying, and this brings up another question, we'll go on, but if people start to think they're countering Zod by being infiltrators, in this case, you think, well, Zod is easily converted into a rapid ingress. Here we go. Now I just straight up run across the field on my turn. Now that I'm brought in, I'm a huge unit. Even if you shoot me, you're not going to clear me, and then I'm going to demolish you. Pretty profound in that case. In my opinion, Zod's an auto take, right? Just straight up an auto take right now. I can't imagine not putting him in a list.
There's one. No, I can't. Every time I try to do it, I'm like, no, there's just on 160 points or 200 points. I'm like, there's nothing else that can compete with this.
Dude, he's
that is in the game.
He's getting nerfed
or the detachment. Who knows? I don't know. Zod goes up to 100, and I still take him.
They're doing Control Alt Delete to the whole Dakka of the wall, because we're about to show people that it's not just straight I shoot and touch you. There's Zod himself is a huge problem for a lot of armies. And but someone else I want to discuss that it's been everybody on mine when you get a 1 CP WAAAGH, let's talk my boy Gaz. So some more than others are very drawn to Gaz. And as far as I understand, and I revisited this to be sure, if I pop the 1 CP, even according to the designer's note, the army is the unit that I activated the WAAAGH for, acts as O. All his abilities are active as if he was in the WAAAGH, which means Makari's aura is active, meaning that you're giving a 12-inch aura. It doesn't matter if those boys aren't in a wall around him, just that his aura is activated because his strat was activated on him and Makari is with him. So that being said, How much do you see Gaz being used in general, even if he's not your cup of tea, to maybe the person who's picking up more stuff for the dakka WAAAGH or just filling out some points?
So I actually was like toying a bunch with them yesterday, and some of the builds I ultimately cut him from some of my lists because I was wanting more stuff. But like him with 6 mega knobs on foot, like there's something like you're getting the feeling of pain consistently, which is a big thing for like mega knobs. Mega knobs are durable until you get out of the wall, and also they like a lot of armies just could one shot them right pretty casually. Like if we had to go in the previous meta before this week. Azureman would just one shot the unit outside the wall, and that felt depressing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like I almost took him. I almost consider mega knobs in one of my tactical lists for ATC. But every time I do, I'm like, dude, I'm like, if I want to go beat up on the elder lists, I'm playing an extra 200 plus points down. Because Azureman one shot that unit, and me having to play around that is not worth my time.
Yeah. Sometimes that's a huge factor. What you just said right there shouldn't be overlooked. Not that some stuff is not playable. Sometimes it's not worth your time at an event to deal with the glaring weakness something has sometimes, right? Yep. And that's what you got to give up. And that was really wise of you.
Yep. Here's actually one thing is like I think really potentially good with them. Is the shooting is so relevant. Getting assault on mega knobs and him means they can walk up, shoot something in small infantry units or a bunch of small infantry units. Like that's another reason I like Zod even more is like we're like Elder Horde mode right now where like it's just Power Rangers everywhere. And both those units can like split shots and kill a bunch of Elder bodies and then charge and kill a bunch more Elder bodies. This is a huge thing for that because like that's mega knobs have a lot of shots. Like when I ran my Bully Boys lists at their peak last year, I was always running guns because people think they can just jail orcs and be okay and they can layer out their jail. And I'm like, no, because I'm going to shoot the small screens Marines behind you and beat up the stuff in front of me. And people were like, oh, well, I just lost a bunch of random bodies that I wasn't planning on losing, right? Like. I always built my orc melee list with the idea that I can kill 10 Marines in every shooting phase with my army. And you look at the mega knobs, dude, that's 6 shots once I get within 9 inches.
Yeah.
With sustained 2s.
Yeah.
And Gaz has 12, goes to like 16. Mm-hmm. You can, in the end game, you're like, hey, look, I want to give him +1 AP. I'm going to script the closest single way cover. And that's a lot of dakka hitting you. That's a lot of mean anti-infantry.
Yeah, for sure. And that's when people aren't used to just orcs having that kind of firepower, even at that close range against their screens, right? New orc players might underappreciate that there's been times where we just bring no guns and you put stuff in front of us. We don't have enough stuff to just shoot a couple guys down, like 10-man units of guardsmen down. In this case, you're killing like half those guardsmen at least, and then working your way around them.
Yep.
So I'm glad.
Here's the way to look at it. It's like sustained hits too. Mm-hmm. If you're within 9 inches, you have 6 shots of dude. 6 shots of dude. There's at least 1 6 and 1 5 in there. Okay, that's the standard math, right? That's 4 hits on average out of 6 shots. That's crazy when you start talking orc numbers. It's just cool.
Yeah, it's just cool. I mean, I think even if you don't want to use Gaz, whatever, dude, Big Mech and Mega Armor. I mean, there's stuff that's the reroll ones. I mean, you can get jiggy with it. There's dev wounds. I'm not saying you're breaking the world with this, guys, right? But this is kind of where the GW was alluding to, where they were trying to give us really fun, cool rules. They just forgot math on Ludas and Tank Busters properly, because those are the big units that are scaring everybody and breaking the meta and breaking everybody's hearts right now. But I love that you pulled this up already, because we still are going to talk about other things. But yeah, I think Gaz is totally playable. Having access to the wall, like you said, meets him a late game threat, a mid game threat, early game threat, constantly going up the field and letting people know I can continue this momentum, and I got some firepower, and it just feels right. It just feels right. You know what else feels right? Walkers. You tell me about walkers, because you sold me on the Death Dreads quite early when I was still sitting there fiddling on my phone, and I was like, hey, Mark, what are you doing? You know, so what do you think about that?
Dude, I brought him back. I'm back at rank triple. And here's this crazy thing is like, I don't know which gun's best. Like, I preach a lot about Scorchers in the past, but now we have more options. Like, I'll talk about, like, you know, if you got guard bodies out there everywhere, you got elder bodies out there everywhere. I was looking at, like, flipping triple big shooters being effective. Like, you know, that's 9 shots goes to 15 shots.
No, you really were. I'm not going to do all that. I'm not going to do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were messing with that.
Yeah, I was doing the math. I'm like, dude, like, it's like 15 shots of your with 18 is, like, I want to say, like, 8-9 hits on average with sustained 2s. And, like, dude, you're just stripping away elder bodies. Like, every little Power Ranger you kill is a good day. Get the little pointy ears out of here, and that threatens them at range. So, like, big shooters had some things there, and I got a big philosophy, which we'll get with it, my next point when we get to next unit. But I'm either big shooters or I'm triple KMB right now. And here's the thing as it goes with it, is the next data sheet is the Morkanaut Gorkanaut. Okay, if I'm running Gorkanauts, I'm running triple KMB because the Gorkanauts bring all the anti-infantry. You know what? 30 shots. If it's hitting on 5s, I think it's like 20 hits on average out of 30 shots if you're in rapid fire range. Because sustained 2s is just crazy with math. And then, on average 30, 6 fighting. Yeah. You're talking about always at least about, you know, on average should be 5 6s, which is an extra flipping 10 shots. And 10 hits, 20 hits, which is great for the Morkanaut. But if you bring all the anti-infantry with the Morkanaut or Gorkanaut, you bring the KMBs. Therefore, you can keep your firepower diverse. You don't just have, hey, I have an overwhelming number of this one stat. Right? I have anti-infantry, and then I have a bunch of D6 damage throwing guns. Then on key targets with that strip cover. Then if I bring Morkanauts, I'm really thinking about big shooters because the Morkanauts bring the custom Mega Zappa, another KMB. And then I'm like, okay, that's where the big shooters help out because I'm keeping things, you know, I'm hitting all the right check marks I need to hit when it comes to firepower. I'm not just limiting myself to like one stat that I've really overwhelmed. But then there's a line where, like, what happens if I just take, like, I built one of my lists that had 57 KMB shots. Custom Mega Blaster shots. And without, you know, counting that, a lot of those are in Luda squads, Burner Boys, Morkanauts, Big Mechs, and Ludas. Like, you have a lot of instances here where they're hitting on 4s, they're full reroll hits, or rerolling 1s a hit, where, like, without rerolls even considered. 57 shots, I think, ends up being, like, 39 hits. Okay? Like, 39 hits at KMB into a Land Raider, and you strip its cover away, and all these shots are spread out, but Armor Contempt is not legit, because it's not coming from one unit. Like, you're doing, like, I want to say it's like, you're doing, like, let's say, I think it was 39 hits. 1/3 of that would be, let's say, 16. Is it 16? Yeah, 16, or like 15 hits, maybe, no, 39. 14, closer to 14 hits, or 13 wounds. Okay, so 13, 14 wounds at just no armor contempt. Those are 4-ups. That's 7 to 6 failed saves. 3.5 times that much. You're talking dead Land Raider, which all your random KMBs going to a Land Raider. That was not the case in the past meta where, you know, they got cover and armor contempt was a whole phase.
Yeah. -2 AP felt horrible. In this case, -2 AP is so functional, and I like it. Now, it does, you know, require a good CP management in this detachment when we're talking about some of the combos you want to do with, but it's quite manageable with something like a Death Dread that's trying to work independently to move around the field and kind of play the field a bit easier. How are you feeling about Gorkanauts and Morkanauts, though, as a whole, right? Just not just the, you know, custom Mega Blaster equation, but between its transport capacity, it's melee, the 1 CP to make it a little bit more mobile and hitting on 4s. You don't got to pay what I used to call the mech tax, where you have to pay for the baby mech just so you're somewhat functional. Even if you're giving it the wall, you know, we went over the fact that in the FAQ, it was clear that if you give it the wall, you get its data sheet ability as well. So how are you feeling about Morkanaut, Gorkanauts?
I got 2 currently in the list, all of them. I've always kind of had this idea of like dual Morkanaut, Gorkanaut, like wall attack or wall horde. I want to say wall tactics. Shout outs, head channel. Where they're really, I think, good value right now. Like what happens is they're T12 to good stat and 20 wounds. I want to say like it's a very safe play that 5 fire dragons that ignore Overwatch should not one shot a Morkanaut and Gorkanaut because of the high wound count. They're wounding on 5s. Rerolls are really awkward, so that forces people to have to commit more than just a casual 5-man squad, which is what you want them to do when you're an orc, right? Exactly. They can't, they let's say in this scenario, ignore Overwatch with the first 5-man squad. Okay. That should on average not kill me. If it does kill me, oh well, that's just dice games. That just happens sometimes. But most of the time, I would say logical players that are sinking that are not high risk, right? The higher the skill level you go, the less risk those players take. So they're not going to risk that 5-man squad just go up there and just lose a coin flip if they're going to kill it, right? They don't even like doing that coin flip. And this is not coin flip I see is in their favor. So, let's say they don't do that. And, then they have to put out the next 5-man squad. Well, that unit's risking getting overwatched by something else, right? So then they need to commit a third squad to safely get a kill on a Morkanaut Gorkanaut chassis from an elf player. And as soon as they do that, but that's a lot more exposed. You're gonna kill 3 elf bodies that are 3 elf units that are looking at you that are just staying out there at the moment. Some builds have fire and fade, but then you have melee. You're still an orc at the end of the day. Go hit them. They're that close that they're getting Delta range. So with that in mind, again, the T12, the 20 wounds, big value chassis on. Which ones I'm taking back and forth, I don't know at the moment. I really like the Morkanaut always having the invult, but I really like the Gorkanauts. Like the 30 shots is a great profile at 611.
Volume.
Like it's volume. Yeah.
Volume's king as an orc, man. Everybody likes quality, but we like quantity, especially when you're getting sustained 2 as your army rule. One thing you touched on before with your Morkanaut and Gorkanaut experience that I later tested too is when you're utilizing their transport capacity for something that you do want to deliver and with firepower, but you don't want to stage 2 defensively so that it's not interacting, is when people do commit, like you said, to this Morkanaut, what was inside of it will disembark safely within the terrain peach that it was staged in, considering that it's towering, it can see over and consistently keep shooting and playing the field if you wanted it to. Therefore, you're getting a good trade there sometimes, like you were bringing out, to make people overcommit a lot of units. And it's a good kind of assault transport to the point that when you have assault, they'll run through that terrain piece and your towering model can still kind of lay the firepower down from there too. So there's good flexibility in that and using its full data sheet. So now that's something that you mentioned before, but I thought it was good to bring back up too.
Yep, really taking advantage of all those rules.
Yeah, and that's what I like a lot. And here's your boy the Gorkanaut, right? Because he has his 20 base attack shots, and then you can make him hit on 4s for 1 CP, and then he's 2 sustain 2, and it just gets hilarious. And a lot his -1 AP used to be like not the detriment, but kind of a big factor. People still taking good saves. Now it can be much less of a factor when he closes that distance to get in rapid fire range, because it goes to 30 when he does. So freaking love this guy.
Here's a big thing.
What's up?
Is WAAAGH giving assault? How many times playing tactical, I wish I could just assault or advance, shoot, and charge. I can only advance and shoot or advance and charge, or not in Dread Mob, even in tactical when I've been playing the Morkanaut in there. And now you have that option, and it's army white. Like you talk about 2 Morkanauts, just getting their guys out, then going minimum 9 inches up to 14 inches, shooting and charging. Like, you talking about an orc bowling ball if I've ever seen one?
Well, I freaking love it, and you're right. And that's why I do encourage people to play it. I know you're going to see online, and people are like, nah, don't bring none of that. You don't need it. But don't worry about any of that. Yeah, we'll say that it's also cool when you press huge show-offs is that you are getting +1 to hit, and it's not exclusive to ranged or melee, so it counts for both. So even if you don't have access to your data sheet ability for giving them WAAAGH, you still can actually still take advantage of +1 to hit all around, which I think matters a lot for these guys. Because Mork, you want to get them hitting on 2s in melee, but you still want them to shoot on 4s. So these are pretty sick. If you don't mind, let me do a maintenance check real quick and just give a shout out to all the super chats and all the the memberships because these gifts are getting a little crazy. So 5 for my boy Cup. Whoa, for the 5 WAAAGH Tactics gifted membership. Just so you know, we released membership exclusive videos, and we're going to do more of that. We're definitely more about fun for now and just to be inclusive, but it's so I don't saturate your news feed, but also get some more content downfield. So thank you for the support. It means a lot. My generous get and the Fighting Fedora with the super chats. All Grot are super Grot down with Zal. Oh, you little hater, huh? What's going on here? Free Def Cop collaborators, dude. I never seen a Zod hater, but he's like Steven, right? My boy. Love it. But you get 5 WAAAGH Tactic memberships as well. So thank you very much. Whoa, for very generous from you guys. And we're keeping a high pace here because we got a lot to talk about because I have more notes and banners, but we're just going in because we don't want to just talk about what you guys already heard with the bread and butter. We're going in on we have way deeper codex than a couple data sheets that are being abused, which is fine. I mean, I'd abuse them too. It's all good. So let's keep going. Oh, and of course we got my get Andrew Stone, $5. Whoa, that's what's up. And then Fighting Fedora again. David Speaky's laugh at our Luda's hitting on 5. All right, Gil, look, it's really hot today. I haven't seen you Fighting Fedora, man. Whenever Grots get a little powerful, Fighting Fedora pops out of nowhere and just starts making it. Just let it be known that Grots are strong again. So something else I want to discuss because we were talking about the strats is what about the dakka to krumpin ratio, right? So, you know, there's people who will say, let me bring some beast naga boys for objective flipping. Let me bring a breaker boy unit to have that line defense from a pressured army. I want flash kits because they do both and they're kind of the combined arms fact built into them. Or some people are saying all trucks, bring the dakka, make it rain. They can't interact with you. You know, how are you feeling for dakka ratio to krumpin? I know where I stand, but we got plenty of videos for that. What do you think?
I think my ratio typically is at the end of the day, you're an orc. You're gonna shoot them, but you should also be running at them. Yeah. I don't know, like I like to take those units that do both. Right, I would have been flash kits because I just hate the 40 mil bases. I hate managing all those bases. And that's just my own thing. I like lots of 32s. I'll tell you what kills me the most about tank busters. And the other ones is learning to play with adding the 40 mil guy in there.
Yeah,
and that's an interesting life. You know, kind of relearning how to use this unit in that way. But going into that crumping style is you got to remember that, hey, look, at the end of the day, all your gun guys still punch, and you need to utilize that, right? I've talked about before where, I'm charging my tank bus. I'm taking advantage of those stats, right? And with that in mind, that's one of the reasons I like the Morkanaut and Gorkanauts. They hit hard in melee. Again, certain type of targets, people are just terrified of them, but they shoot also. They do both. Mm-hmm. Burner Boys. I'm big on Burner Boys in detachment. Assault on Burner Boys is just crazy because now they advance, shoot, and charge. They're more likely to get within 6 for their rerolls on stuff on objectives. They're going to crump you up. You can put them in wall. You have a lot of good value off of this detachment for Burner Boys. They don't get the sustains. That's fine. It's the assault that's really big. Yeah. And they're a good overwatcher in the army since we do not have full reroll hits, flash kits. So they're a good overwatch user. Then, for tank busters, that chop on that knob's super valuable. You got to remember that's on there. Take advantage of that. I've been a big pusher for guys at the Big Mac, just with the Exo suit with KMB Power Claw. Big money maker. Like that guy in tactical, I was getting the strength 10, that free wounds T5 stuff, like other orc chassis on 2s and melee AP2, bleeds through other people's tank busters, flash kits, knobs, even war bosses are their own characters. And taking advantage of the fact that he shoots, he melees, he's a great value at 70 points. Then Zagrad's unit in this army shoots too now since they have assault in the wall. That's awesome that you do both. I was looking at, again, the shooter boy brick for this one, and I was actually thinking of not putting the weird boy in it. I was looking at some of the builds with the weird boy. I just hate the almost that human fear factor of where I just need to accept it as an orc and just say, hey, if I rolled the 1 on the jump, I failed, rolled the 1. Don't worry about it. but like,
No.
you know, there's still boys at the end of the day with shooters. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to charge you. I'm strength 5. I will punch out T3, T4 stuff in melee. Is getting that combined arms, death dreads, free guns, 1 power claw. That's my ratios. I want to keep that stuff hand in hand. I don't want a single unit that does one thing. I want all my units of orcs to do it all.
No, that's a great answer, and I think that's a really good way to look at it, because the detachment kind of hints at that already by giving you a WAAAGH and giving you reroll wounds, right? So it's very much telling you, like, people are looking at the math and saying, well, I don't care, I'm just going to shoot everything. But we're telling you that the assault momentum and the forward progress between Zod continuously activating a WAAAGH for something that hasn't been killed yet, or somebody, typically what happened on the WAAAGH they would kind of hold off one side of the field to delay you, clear and interact with this side, pre-measure you, and know that you could never even interact with them because you couldn't advance and charge anymore. Well, that's not the case anymore. If they delay on that side of the field and leave guys alone, well, here we go again. Advance and charge, and the guys that are to go over there are going to get Makari's lethal aura, even if it is the leftover guys that you didn't think were going to come and punch you. But now those guys are going to come and punch you as well. So I do like that, and it leads to more opportunities because sometimes if you're just relying on shooting, it's like, well, I just bounced, and I'm standing on my deployment zone still. Well, then you have a really good chance of still losing the game. But if I am shooting at you and moving forward, it's almost like failing forward, where I'm taking space, I'm landing on objectives, I'm in position to score secondaries. Even if I'm dying, whatever's left over might still be able to score a secondary. And that's really the name of the game, is attrition, right? And something you mentioned before about mix between the walkers, right, that I wanted to talk about was when you're talking about the mix of toughness and then the unit saturation, that's the attrition that orcs are trying to control. Do you want to hit on that again? Because that's something you wanted to mention, and we I think might have walked over once. So about the
yeah.
You told me this once when we were just exchanging lists, right? So share with the audience.
So there's a strength in diversity when it comes to orc profiles. We have a lot of random different profiles. One of the things is that's one of our strengths, is having a diverse codex, right? We have lots of different type of units, lots of different wounds, toughness values, save values, even movement. You know, movement at a certain degree is defensive. Like one of the best things about Storm Boys is being able to move makes them very easy in their ways that they can be defensive. So when you're diversing your stats, you're not making an orc list that only does 1 or 2 things when it comes to defensive stats, movements, shooting. If you're only doing 1 or 2 exact same stats across the board, like if you take nothing but flash kits, tank busters, you become really prone to the basic shuriken cannon, a heavy bolter. These 2 damage anti-infantry weapons bleed for you, and you're paying for that, right? Or if you just go like, if any of y'all keep up with any of my results across the times, I've never really been a truck guy. One thing is, I think because I'm planning on prepping for beating higher level players, and players that have lines that are easy. They have easily solved the game state for trucks, and also trucks. When you have 6 of them, they stick out. They're really weak to getting shot by a hard angle where the rest of the army can't hit them. So I keep my footprint smaller. Don't take all those trucks that are all weak to the exact same profiles. Have some battle wagons in the mix. Battle wagons are not on the truck profiles. They're totally different beasts. So keeping those different profiles, and the same thing with the Morkanauts. The Morkanaut and the battle wagon are 2 different profiles, but I'll run both at the same time because they have different stats, but they're similar. 20 wounds, 16 wounds. One has armor tip at 16 wounds, one has 20. But the 20 wound count means a lot of random melt-a-gun squads from Fire Dragons, random guard melt-a-guns, Space Marine, like Eradicators, stuff like this. Those D6 damages are not consistently going to drop 20 wounds through a 5 moments T12, right? And if a Morkanaut survives on a couple of wounds left, you better pray that your Overwatch is going to be good, or maybe I just work around it. I just keep it still, shoot it, and then charge it after they've been engaged. There's lines around this. So, and everything goes with all the infantry. Don't keep with just 1 wound. Look, I always say have about 20-ish wounds of each stat. Like, hey, look, I got like 20 wounds at T3 or at T6, with like bikes and Squeakhawk boys that are free wounds T6, T7 profiles. Have about 20 wounds of the maybe more like 40 on their case because they're a lot more easier to throw those in there. There's tank busters and flash kits. Therefore, you're not prone to all those 2 damage stuff. Then I have enough 1 wound models where all that 2 damage stuff isn't good, right? If the 2 damage stuff is not good into the free wound stuff and the 1 wound stuff, then those parts of your army are going to be able to what I'm trying to say. They're going to be able to thrive in that damage and absorbing that damage because either they're pointed well for it or their defense is inherently just good at taking it. They got to work double time to kill free wounds. They got overkill. It feels like overkill to waste 2 damage weapons into boys profiles.
No, that made absolute sense. Yeah.
And melee's a lot like that too. Like you got to look at be able to look at people's army, know what their damage looks like, and say, I have a toolbox of stuff. And what you do is you lead with the stuff that naturally people are good into, right? Like I know going to a matchup, like if I play the Orc Mirror matchup, like flash kits and flash kits are like really toxic to each other. But if I can get someone's bait their flash kits going for by using my flash kits, the rest of my army can jump their flash kits and remove them, right? But those units can get in a skirmish for with the rest of the army and they can't get jumped because like bikes are free wound, a bunch of 1 wound bodies or like stuff on these elements, right? You really want to be able to make people work hard for those stats and make them have to make hard decisions. Like, hey, is this overkill? Is this underkill? Right? Because orcs really love it when you overkill them or underkill them. Yeah, like you overkill us, oh, that's great value. Like that means the rest of my army's not going to be getting killed. Versus if you underkill my unit, a boy and 2 or a knob and 2 boys, that guy's still threat. That's a threat.
Yeah. Full unit in my head right there, boy. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, there's a war boss in there. You're like, man, I'm ready. Yeah. So you gotta think about that stuff and make it people not just have an easy answer to your army, right? I think that's a lot. I can go on a tirade. I can give you a paper on
I think you answered it well, and I think it transitions over to what if we don't have the full dakka archetype? So, in my opinion, full dakka archetype falls along the lines of 2, 3 sags, 20, 30 ludas, 10 to 20 flash kits, 3 units of tank busters, and then plug and play trucks, whatever. That's what most people are kind of drawing out already when you're looking around the internet. Of course, there's more diversity in that. But other than the full dakka archetype, right? You've already mentioned some of those units between bikers, or one that I think is a little unloved, for example, but for the common git, Squigs getting active to a wall all game could be quite interesting and quite fun. They go up there in the game and they continue momentum if they're not fully dead because they could just keep doing it. So you can still kind of appreciate that. You brought up battle wagons. Some people aren't really bringing battle wagons, but I think kind of along the lines of when you mentioned your Death Dreads and your Morkanauts, Gorkanauts, that's one of those other stat lines that it's not just straight trucks and boys. If you whiff and all you have is trucks and boys, or you're playing against a good person who knows how to dissect an orc army and go, okay, I'm going to pop that truck, and then I have something there to follow up and eat the unit that's inside. I can only lose one of these units in response. Therefore, I'm going to do it again to another truck and continue that cycle to keep picking up our, like you said, redundant stat line units. So what are some full full dakka archetype units that you kind of like?
I think battle wagons Gaz does have a lot of potential in this build. Nice. I think next to Warlord, this is probably the best detachment for Gaz.
Woo, and I want to hear, man,
dude. It's the WAAAGH. Like you're just getting so much value out of Meganobs, and like they shoot, they melee. I've already preached enough about that. Yeah. I think having a Gaz brick that's 245 points for him and 6 megas. That's a big, that's a big threat. That's a big toolbox unit. It's not just full dakka. Yeah. I think also there's room for like a boy, like just boys in this detachment. Keep them in WAAAGH is huge.
Yeah.
Like a 20-man, boys, war bosses, being able to put war bosses you get the extra +5 attacks on that war boss. That's massive. And that means he's always at strength 11. Those are big numbers.
They're always and their pistols aren't trash with sustain too, and you're running that in. I freaking love that, dude. That was one of the first things I was like, dude, 20 boys can just run and shoot pistols and charge, and my war boss can go off whenever I want.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. He has a combi weapon.
Yeah.
What happens when he gets 2 sustains, and also that turns into 6 hits, and you could possibly 6 dev wounds on infantry? That's just
mathematically unlikely. I don't care. It can happen. That's why we're here, though, right? That's what we're looking for. So I appreciate GW giving us these opportunities with the rules. You do math better next time, maybe, or something, and we'll talk about like what changes we can see. But this is what we really want to explore. What we really like is orcs have a bunch of different ways in units that can stand out. Was there something else? I don't know if there was a different unit, because boys was my other one. Some people were saying snaggas, kind of following the same underline with the boys. You can get reroll wounds on the snaggas to be appealing.
Yep.
Right. So
reroll wounds for all those units are huge. Yeah, like reroll hits and wounds mean like saggy units like that. Okay, we know how good the beast boss is with his dev wounds, but he can sometimes be a little inconsistent because 4s are 4s. Like sometimes they just don't want to show up for work.
Yeah.
With the reroll wounds, like that's crazy. You know, like that's a 75% dev wound rate for that guy. Pretty good there.
Yeah.
I also think it like, you know, them rerolling hits and like light vehicles. Like, dude, like the Sluggas getting sustained 2 full reroll hits against like Tau battle suits is pretty funny.
That's sick. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But that's sick.
Like no Tau players want to feel good when like it just loses a crisis suit. So like 20 Slugga shot that just do a bunch of wounds to you. And putting him in the wall always is very good there. I think there's some room. I think my earpiece just died. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, you were sounding great. The chat was giving you good credit for how you sounded. Another thing.
Sweet. I just lost one earbud, so we're good. We're good. I lost one earbud.
We were
okay.
We were on the snaggas, and it's just there's some get out there. I seen you everywhere. He kept saying, "What about the word boy with 20 snaggas?" And I was like, "That's my dude," because I was talking about boys. So that's actually a thing. It's not worth the points. But go ahead if you want to play like softball with your friends and still appreciate the detachments. These are the kind of outlier builds that I would say go ahead and tech into some nonsense because everything else is really strong, and have fun with it while you have it if they choose to take it from you. So you get out there to answer your question directly. You were so freaking persistent that you could do it. Not worth it. I still don't care because in a pickup game, it could be fun and worth it just for the experience. But
if you had to play them, I wouldn't bring them in the 20-man squads. I would just bring 3 of them because like you got legit they got real shooting on them, and you just Russian roulette. You don't know what they're gonna do. You're rolling slots here.
You're saying 10-man war boy?
No, just take the free war boys by themselves.
Okay. That's even funnier.
You just get them out and you just shoot them.
Okay.
And like, cool, they do some battle shock. The battle shock stuff is actually relevant with the Def Dreads.
Dude, I can't believe we're actually talking about this. How did it get here? Yeah. I don't want to read it all, but he can get D6 plus X amount of shots on his.
Take you free. It's 2 damage. It's big. I'm just saying big a lot today. I don't know where I got all this big from.
If you have him with like a 10-man snaggas, he is re-rolling the hit roll, so then you can make him fish for more 6s and then just be obnoxious, which is like my cup of tea. I'm just like, what? I got most hits. I don't care. I'm gonna keep rolling those until I get a 6. I'm just gonna pick them up anyways and roll them. And I'm that kind of get. So, So those are some of the I'm not saying the word boy, but I do think snaggas, beast boss with snaggas does have its appeal. Totally, you're not wrong for that. It's hard to say what's wrong because it's too early in the game, but we're just pulling everything on the table right now and just kind of poking at everything and see how we feel. Mind you, if you want to throw a buggy in there, the strats work for them too. Don't think it's worth it, but it could be fun. Do you randomly like a buggy? Any buggies you randomly like? Not really. Not me.
I like scrap jets. Every time I want to put them in the list, I have to cut points. Or they just don't quite fit. Like there's just better things that synergize more. It's really sad because I really like scrap jets.
Man, love me a scrap jet. Now, we kind of semi-cover this, but how many transports is too many? You can mitigate this to how many trucks, would you take if you're a truck lover? I'll go first. I think you can simply take 2, but it's totally fine if you take up to like 5. Not sure if full 6 is where I'd be. A lot of time I've been settling for 3 or 4, but I think right now for what I like, 2 is kind of the number for trucks. But for you, what do you think about just transports as a whole? I mean, there's a gargantuan squig out there that is happy that he has access to the wall now, so he can have a 5-up invuln. You know, so what else? What do you think about transports?
I'm always down. You got to have at least 2 transports. It's either 2 trucks, 2 battle wagons, or a battle wagon Morkanaut. Now it's double Gorkanaut or Morkanauts. Orcs got to have their transports. Like one of the things that orcs lose their momentum is when they get demounted from their transport. When your opponent did it and didn't lose any positional. You only lost positional power by losing your transport, and your opponent didn't lose anything. Like he didn't trade enough and so forth. One of the reasons that I don't like trucks, because like truck sticks out by the edge a little bit. People hunt it down, kills it. It's kind of free. You get sad. Versus like, battle wagons. One of the reasons why I like battle wagons so much was because they hold 20+ dudes, so they're 2 trucks and 1. They can do great. They're great for the action monkey. So I'm moving up, getting the guys out, getting that momentum swing. You could fit a whole lot of like a battle wagon's not much more bigger than a truck. So when you're considering like deployment with the terrain maps, deployment lines, you can fit 1 truck. If you fit 2 trucks on there, you may have to touch that terrain if they're on both on the front line. Versus 1 battle wagon plugs in there easy peasy. Same thing with the Morkanauts. So I always look at those terrain maps and say, hey, look, these are high valued positions for my transports. What fits in there without getting 1 too clunky, or you're oversaturating the line where you can't exist on the same models. There's a big problem with orcs being the armies are huge. We have big bases, we have big models. Where a lot of times we're stepping on each other's toes for space. Right? So when I build list, I always look at this, hey, I'm going to deploy this list. I know how the terrain maps look that are typically being played. What plugs in where and fits in those occupied space, right? I plan with the battlefield in mind, because otherwise you're just like, I run forward and this truck blocks this truck, and that's really can like mess up your position. You can't get enough of these guys down this one little alley that's maybe like 2 to 3 inches wide, this lane, where like 3 trucks couldn't disembark all their tank buses down this lane. 1 battle wagon moves up, you can line up all 3 segments, shoot down that same lane.
Absolutely.
And you're not stepping on each other's toes.
I think that goes really well into the next thing we spoke of. What about favorite reserves? But in this case, we were talking about reserves for this detachment. How do you feel about it? With kind of goes with the conversation of the transports and like the momentum and all those things we already talked about. So what do you think about reserves?
I'm really hard right now pressed for reserves. Like maybe I want 1 Storm Boy unit in there, but like at the moment, I'm not reserving with this list in my openers. And I haven't actually been reserving with orcs other than the Storm Boys and Tactical, like I think most of this year. Like I've done it one time with the Morkanaut and the Flash Kits, because like it was against T-Suns, I wasn't going to be able to see much. I want to kind of experiment a little bit. And it worked out just fine, but at the same time, like the rest of my army just carried me. I didn't even need that unit. Like that's crazy to say. You don't need 500+ points of your army. And reserves are one of the reasons I like the Burner Boys is they're good reserves. Like now you can pop out advanced shoot and charge, great for rapid ingressing. Like Burner Boys get a lot of value when they can do both of those things. Zogrod units has options now for rapid ingress to stick to the statue. We were talked on that already. Like that's absolutely a play. 10 grots, that's not bad there. If you got like, you got your home objective sitting grots, you got your Zogrod grots, your third grot unit would probably be reserves a lot of times.
Yeah. A Death Dread. I like the Death Dreads. I like the custom Mega Blaster ones from the ones we were discussing fully as the most. So other than that, for reserves, like you said, it's been, especially when you have Zod and you're already like, I'm probably going to be taking a lot of the table space. I can really just stage up where I want to be. I don't really not really looking to do it so much in this detachment, but there are some little 5-man options, skits, flash skits, burners, whatever it may be. Speaking of someone that we both appreciated, the 2 units we both appreciated for the most part, how you feeling about Snikrot and Commandos? So one thing people bring up is, well, Snikrot is a lone op, and he can obviously go onto the middle table and then start yelling around the corner that there's guys, them gets over there, and then there's no cover anymore or whatever. But is it really something you're going to tech into, as well as Commandos, where a lot of the time we like them for, hey, I can open up with early scoring on secondaries. I can deny enemies reserves this space. Maybe on a search and destroy is the one I bring up a lot, and is brought up a lot, is I need to have something kind of already over there. In what you already mentioned, we're stepping on each other's toes in our deployment zone, specifically that one that comes to mind. But how are you feeling about Commandos? Because I haven't found the spot for them in my points. I just somewhat think about them in the mirror matchup. That's about it, right? But I'm not really fitting them in this detachment. What about yourself?
I'm not either. And at the moment, like you brought up the mirror match, I'll go with a point that kind of like that's something that I thought about, and like I played it one time, and then I realized that like a Big Mac and 5 Ludas beats up on 10 Commandos and a character. Mm-hmm. And that was in tactical. Now that's with assault. You got a different here in the dakka lovers detachment, but similar, because like you're getting advanced shooting charge, right? Mm-hmm. Like beforehand, I was not even shooting with my Ludas. I was just running at them with Commandos, and those dudes buffing them with double orders, and like go ham, go chop, go beat up some strength 6 Ludas in melee. We'll beat up Commandos. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that goes with it. Like this detachment, like I don't think without the redeploy Commandos. The thing is, mm-hmm. the current pariah terrains are not kind, I think, to Commandos as a whole. How the buildings are placed, but also where the walls typically are. If you're following by the actual GW lineups, like if you go away games, they're gonna follow that. If you go to a lot of people that have unified terrain across the board, you're going to have these ruins that like the walls are not friendly, where like you can just get or not even sharp angles, but kind of like pushed angles a little bit and shoot your Commandos, or like they're pushed so far back behind the terrain where they don't get to interact with the game as much. For a good screen, if you're playing like a different style where like, hey, look, I'm a more cutting kit where like I'm waiting moments and lining up the kill shots, I'm playing 5 turns. They actually have play. They actually have the place. Snikrot as the warlord. When you're as an orc, you're going to clear the objective. Zagrat at one point is going to clean up the opponent's home objective every day.
At some
point. And that allows Snikrot to come and sneak in secret mission options if you want to, and go with that. But I think Snikrot right now really, like when they increased his points by 20, I think he really didn't deserve that.
No, that was too much.
It hurt.
Dude, he's too expensive, man. If he dropped 15, I'd be like more interested at least. But he's a lot, dude. He needs to go down quite a bit.
He's hefty.
But we're not going to get any pity or love, because right now we're about to be everybody's nightmare. So speaking of being everybody's nightmare, what's some like reasonable adjustments maybe that you could see yourself? Not that we have power over that or influence, and not that GW is to be reasoned with, we'll just say. But what is something that you'd say and you'd say, okay, I can make sense of that. That's cool. Still want to play this.
I think like the obvious change would be, I'm really happy that they almost had a nightmare on their hands, because they almost they put down that you only get the sustains in your shooting phase, not in Overwatch. But putting the sustains down to 2 would be a thing. Another thing would be like, if we'll see if it's crazy on there, but the detachment right now, we have a lot of really cheap, high efficient units that are using the detachment role, right? Like if this detachment Ludas are obviously extremely high valued units. They're very effective in the detachment, but also the reason why they're so effective is because they're so cheap. They're 10 points per body. Tank Busters got that point increase, so I think that would keep them more or less aligned. And I really think it's like, to me, it's the stratagems. The stratagems are put over the top. Like, yeah, the orc shooting is pretty dumb, but you can fix a lot of that with points. Little points here, increase there, and you would not hit that critical mass. But then the strats to me are what we need to be cautious on, because like we'll see how powerful the WAAAGH is. Because like obviously I think all the data sheet rules outside of being play tested in Bully Boys were not play tested with having WAAAGH active for the whole game. Like there's like Zagrod definitely was they did not have that in play testing.
Dude, the thumbnail, baby, check that out, boy. Chad Rod is looking at the world like you guys done effed up. This is reactive move 12 in Dread Mob was sick, and we loved it. This is like one of the only other things that could have superseded that of I could just do whenever I want. And what you said is true. Giving those guys just whenever we want. They didn't think about it. There's some crazy person right now that's like, I'm just gonna throw 6 unit of Snagga boys down the field and keep popping Gaz's aura and letting them lethal all around him while I act like a giant death ball up the field. Like somebody's trying to make a list of Gaz is giving lethal and making a death ball of melee that runs at you and just moves up the field. There's people that want to do these things. I don't know how practical it is, but the point is that there's things in this detachment that will still be fun as long as you don't overtune it to the degree that it's not beating everybody up in the world. You said in the beginning that it would have sustain 2 or take away. What'd you mean? Did you mean we take away the sustain 2 in the beginning of your statement, or what were you saying?
It would probably just move to Warhorde. It's the opposite of Warhorde. Just sustain 1 for your shootings. I think would be an obvious if you had to change detachment rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Drop it to just sustain 1. Yeah, for sure. I think that does help. I don't want them to do what our boy, I forgot who it was from Art of War said that, not our boy, but I meant just everybody watches them occasionally. They help a lot in the community, but he mentioned like just switching the detachment rule to we just get assault all times and then sustain 2 only on the WAAAGH. I think that would just make me not interested in playing the detachment that much, to be honest. Besides, unless they like left the strats completely alone, and then you could probably work something around it with the
that would hurt a lot of stuff long-term wise for doing damage. I think it would be like sustain 1 and the WAAAGH sustain 2. Gain assault sustain 1 all the time, and then the WAAAGH sustain 2. That would be a way.
That'd be fun. That'd be really fun, and that'd be, I think, a pretty good compromise because some stuff already has sustain 1 or whatever it may be. So I like that. That's a good one. I'm just thinking, what if we said like, dude, they're gonna so nerf Zod or something? Like, I just like.
But like, here's the thing: is like Zod's like always been strong in every detachment. He only gets stronger. I feel like somehow, it's like, have you watched solo leveling? Anyone that has, he's just Hunter's Song. Like every detachment comes out, he just gets stronger.
It's true, and it's funny because I hear other content creators and just people bringing him up, and they're like, bro, this guy, Wart Forehead, dude, he's crazy, big head Snagga, like whatever they're calling him. They're just like, this guy's absurd. And I'm like, dude, his rule was already absurd. It's fantastic, but he's getting better, like you said. So when you mentioned, they can tune us and tweak us, I think someone's going to scream, get that guy, before all is said and done. And like you said, Ludas, just having a lot of cheap stuff does help. I think Ludas go up. I would really like if they just nerf the problematic units of Sag, Luda, tank busters to a certain degree, like increase points so it's not so much stuff, and then still allowed us to kind of play around with sustain 2, like we talked about. For what I really want to see is like Mega Knobs actually being able to utilize their guns and find some funness factor in that. People really want to appreciate those kind of rules. Shooter boys, I didn't forget to mention shooter boys today. For those guys who are wondering, if you did jump into place, they already have, if you had rapid fire on like your pistols, you're outside of range, for example, and your shooters already have rapid fire 1. So that enhancement isn't interesting. And like we already said, you already have all the DAKA pistols, so you don't really want to give up your choppas just so you can shoot these less inferior DAKA shooters, in my opinion. Unless you feel like you want to.
That's actually a good reserve unit. Like we talked about earlier, like 10 like shooter boys, that wouldn't be a bad unit reserve because like you come out, maybe you make your charge, but otherwise here's 20 shots type thing.
I like that. Not trying to make them like your big, I'm gonna stick characters onto them and make them a unbalanced trade. That's not cool, but utilizing them just as boys be boys. And you just still appreciate the power claw, still appreciate, you got your rocket and your shooters and now your sustain 2. You could do some fun, like you said, coming in from reserve and be multi-purpose. So that's how I feel about shooter boys, because I don't want to forget mentioning them. Because someone's like,
my shooter boy. Can I use him? Like, you know, so I just bring him up. And then we got Andrew Stone. Thank you both for the cunning and brutal thoughts. And thank you, Git, for being generous. Whoa, to the Git, Andrew Stone. I know you've been around here. You get popping up a lot to the live streams. So thanks for that. And we'll do a little last comment run through. But in short, do you think GW will drop a hammer on our DAKA? Right. So how do you think GW might address this? Like magnitude, I think did overtune Bully Boys. You know, Meganob's my opinion. Bunch of points, drop the feel, no pain. A little bit of an overtuning. You didn't have to do both, in my opinion. Do you think they're gonna just like overtune it? Maybe be a little sensitive like they are with Eldar and Necrons, where they're just always gently petting them down, or will they just straight obliterate this detachment like they did Bridgehead? You know, what do you think?
I see a higher chance that they just obliterate it, because historically with orcs, they typically go over the top with them.
Yeah.
When like people really start to complain about orcs, or like they witness like really dumb stuff about orcs, like they really do drop the hammer on it. Look at Bully Boys, look at Freebooters back to the day. Like when they believe that orc detachments are problematic, they do it. And also counting, let's say, Tactical Brigade. In a certain way, Tactical Brigade did get a hard hammer dropped on it, where we don't get 2 orders now. We don't get 2 tactics.
We didn't talk about that either.
Yeah, like they kind of dropped us that hard on that detachment, where it was like really utilizing these 2 abilities, like we're having offense and defense at the same time. And I think the biggest thing would be probably not touching the detachment. They didn't touch Bully Boys when the detachment was. What they did was they hammered the units point cost. Like I was already expecting SAGMEX to go up to like 85 points at minimum to 95 points. With this update. We only went up by 10. We went back to the 75 points we were originally. But I see them just going up to that 85, 95 points. Tank Busters can probably go up to that, 5 to 15 points. And that, and probably Ludus at least, probably Ludus like 10 to 15 points also. That's if I expect them to go down that, like they're gonna look at the lists that are taking doubles, triples of those units and multitudes.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, take out extra 150 points, and like really cut your down for size.
Destroy the detachment because about 4 problematic data sheets, 3 or 4 problematic data sheets, maybe. Don't dismantle the detachment that hasn't been explored, that brings a truly interesting version of combined arms and brings back some of the walkers to be a little bit interesting. Hopefully not. I would prefer that they just nerf those DAKA problematic units. That way people can kind of still get to flush things out. Like you mentioned with the Tactical Brigade, I wanted to have fun with some more squigs, or bikers. Or, you used trike at some point, right? Didn't you use a trike last team event?
Yeah, I've used trikes over ATC. I've used them at Champions Cup. I really like trikes.
And Tactical was bikes. Cool for the trikes. Tactical was cool. You get them stealth, they get a little strength, a little reroll charge. They were interesting. And you instead of just taking away the DAKA problematic, which we hoped they would have done and not smashed the detachment, then we could have just kept exploring Tactical Brigade and dropped in some mounted units, dropped in some other random stuff, kind of kept playing, but dropped in big units of boys. I was having fun with dropping units. I was bringing a lot of mobs of boys in Tactical Brigade and having fun. So yeah, I don't want them to do that here. I don't want them to smash the WAAAGH strat necessarily. I think a lot of people are whispering in their ear as well, like, make it 3 CP, please. We hate them. No, you know what I mean? Like, it's just I hope not. And I know that a lot of people are like, dude, that's 5 buffs for 1 CP. I get it, but I'm also saying I'm willing for you to just smash out some of that DAKA and let us just play our old-fashioned Krumpin way. So, and still on a high note, though, I still think that there's plenty of play in the meantime, and it won't happen anytime soon, maybe 3 months, hopefully, or so. And GW is just to let us kind of play in the mud and see what happens. If you have the stuff, play it. Even if you don't have the most optimal stuff, hopefully you got some ideas today about what things you can have fun with and still explore in the meantime. Just remember that this skeleton of the DAKA already existed for Dreadmob. So GW kind of just getting caught up to wall tactics where, yes, like Perry said, the shock attack gun was already 75 points. Really, it needed to go up 20 points because when it was dropped to 65 in the video, we said, why did you drop it 10 points? It was already cool and being used in Dreadmob. So they, being nice, which I appreciate you trying to be nice to us,
already made him kind of lower. Just next time, do the math, right, for the DAKA, because nobody wants the freeboot the buggy thing to happen again, right? So with that being said, we're going to wrap up here because we're about an hour 10, so I think that's a pretty good time for our gets. And shout out to the chat. You guys are super active. I appreciate it. Shout out to you guys with the wall. You guys had a lot of good comments. So shout out to Jim Jones. Shout out to what was it? Someone was calling you out. Where is it? My boy. I think Clifton or Clinton. I think we've seen him. We covered him before too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the guys in the super chats.
That's the OG DAKA Daddy. Like that's DAKA Daddy. Like I he's been on that train for I think most of my adult life.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, we covered his list when back even since Index Hammer, right? So but just shout out Andrew Stone, the guys who are supporting, Fighting Fedora, beginning a crazy get, dude. Remember, we're gonna be making more videos with membership behind that, so that'll be fun. Fighting Fedora was a crackhead today, I like it. And then ECOP, our boy out here, always being super supportive. So anything left in the chat? And shout out to all you guys that were here. Have fun with it. Get stuck in. Don't abuse your friends, but if you think you might, take the Warboy and 20 Snaggaboys and then send me a picture so we can all laugh. All right. Any last words, Mark Perry?
Like, comment, subscribe.
Where you know where to find? No, you. Where to find you? Comments about you.
Oh wait, me? I just. You could sometimes find me on the Hobby Goblin stream. Not on there always because it's not close to home always. But you can find me in the Discord. Tag me, ask me questions. Someone asked me a question the other week, and I was like, I was going to get back to them after the weekend. Retag me in there. Ask me the question. It was about Mortal Wounds. I don't remember exactly the details or who it was. Redo that. But tag me in there. I'll ask questions. Otherwise, I'm not really much of a talker. But if you ask me something directly, I will answer at some point.
I think I remember. I think it was the beginner dude. Something like that. The beginner something was his name. So you out there, I know you're a beginner. Go ahead and do it again. That was bold of you, and I like it. It got chat going. So he does reply. He meant it. Don't spam him. But, he's out there, and so are all the gets we talk to around here. And before we head off, our get had to hook us up. Murder Blood Moons. Oh, you shortened your name. Gifted 5 Wall Tactic memberships. Whoa, I'll make it worth it, you gets. I'll put out some videos. So if you guys get that, hook up in there and let me know what you guys want to see in those fun secondhand videos. Yeah, Brandon, you're going to be around too, buddy. So thank you very much, Mark. Check out Mark Perry, Mork, the Great Perry. We like to cover his list all the time. He has great off-the-wall ideas. If you start feeling discouraged about anything, go look at what he's doing or talk to him, and you'll be like, what? Yeah, this whole time, I should have been taking 3 individual Warboys. Thank you, Mark Perry. So with that being said, there's always one thing is don't cross our wall because we knock your teeth out. Whoa.